We are very pleased to see you all here tonight. This is what our democracy is all about, as you all know, we wouldn't be here. So we have tonight those nominees for the Orland Unified School District Board. And Tracey Quarne is going to be our moderator tonight. We have the questions. They'll explain the whole process to you. And we really hope that you'll find it quite an educational experience. All right, thank you.
Good evening. Let us first say thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and Mr. Reed for sponsoring this event. Thank you. May I ask everybody in the audience to turn off your cell phone? Thank you. The format this evening will work as follows. Each candidate will receive 3 minutes to give an opening statement. The order of the candidates in that opening statement was randomly chosen before the event. The first one to speak will be Connie, then Kraemer, and then Vangie Porras. We have 2 incumbents with us this evening, Kraemer and Vangie Porras. We have 1 challenger, Connie. Candidates Jeff Aguiar, and Larry Donnelly are not with us this evening. The format will be after their opening statements, then the questions you have asked through the 3x5 cards will be asked in a rotating order. The first person to respond will be the second person who gave their opening statement, Mr. Kraemer. The second question will first be answered by Ms. Porras. The third question asked will then be answered by Ms. Carter, and we'll proceed in that order until we've covered the questions, and then we'll receive closing statements from each of the candidates in the reverse order of their opening statements. I ask you to refrain from applauding or laughing or expressing any affirmation or negativity towards any of the candidates throughout our forum this evening. I thank you for coming. We appreciate your respect. Good evening. Welcome, and we begin with Ms. Carter, your opening statement. 3 minutes.
Thank you. I was born Connie Ray Elmore in Orland, in Rose's maternity home to Warren and Ethel Elmore. My father, 91, still resides on his property where I grew up. I am a proud graduate of the Orland school system, as are my mother and my children. We all want to see continued careful, value-minded, student-focused spending. Schools are faced with solving many pressing problems with continually decreasing budgets. I want to be involved by asking the right questions and seeking solutions for an Orland school district with continued cooperation, collaboration, commitment to educational excellence, fiscal accountability, and transparency. I bring to you honesty, diligence, capability, and caring, as well as a wide variety of experience that qualifies me to serve you on the Orland School Board. I am pleased to say I was an Orland School District employee for 14 years. I have served as a classroom aide, school site secretary, district bookkeeper for 14 years, and recently retired this June as the food service director. Our students received wonderful, nutritious meals that met every state requirement and more. All state mandates and guidelines were followed while earning a profit for our district and maintaining an excellent relationship with food service employees. In my district experience, I have interacted successfully with students, teachers, parents, bus drivers, custodians, cafeteria workers, school nurses, yard duty aides, business managers, and superintendents. I respect and understand the importance and challenges of every one of these jobs. I have experienced both the management and employee sides of negotiations and often worked interpreting contract language. My recent retirement will afford me the time and energy necessary to serve as a school board trustee. I hold a certificate from the School Business Managers Academy. I am familiar with a myriad of fiscal reports, including budget reports, and have served on the district budget and insurance committees. I received my Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from Chico State in 2002. I am a team player, and I welcome the opportunity to cooperate with the other board members to achieve the best for our students.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Mr. Kraemer.
That thing in front of me. Good evening. My name is Ben Kraemer. I am a current school board member, having served the community for almost 12 years. I'd like to thank you for the confidence you have placed in me during this time. The first thing I would like to discuss are the many building projects we have accomplished during this time. In 2008, with your help, we successfully passed a $21.9 billion building construction bond. With this revenue, we have accomplished the following. At the high school, we have built a complete new football field, stadium, track, and tennis courts. 8 new single-story classrooms, a new 2-story media technology center with computers. We resurfaced the gym floor, installing new heating and air conditioning units, and are remodeling the restrooms. We built our own on-site animal barns, so our ag students who do not have facilities at home can raise show animals for the fair. We have also improved our North Valley High School facilities to provide struggling students with necessary attention in order to obtain their high school diplomas. At C.K. Price, we built a new 2-story multi-classroom media science complex, adding new computers and textbooks, built a new gymnasium and cafeteria, converted the old gym to a band room, and added new landscaping, irrigation, and outside basketball courts. At Mill Street, we installed new playgrounds plus security fencing. We are building a new multi-purpose cafeteria designed to also double as a gym for the students. They have new heating and air conditioning units, and we've added new computers and instructional materials to each class. At Fairview School, we installed a new multi-purpose room for use as a classroom and a band room. We installed new playgrounds and security fencing, and added 3 new student computers in every classroom. All of this has been accomplished with approximately $16 million from bond funds and $9.5 million of state matching fund that do not have to be paid back by this district. Regarding curriculum, this board has pushed our superintendent and staff to continue to come up with the most effective programs for teaching our children. The curriculum that is in place is working well. The teachers are enthusiastic and working together, and test scores are up. We have established professional learning communities at each site. Last year, Orland High School had the highest AIP scores in the county. The current board has made tough decisions required to keep our district solvent while still maintaining our music program, our vocational ed programs, including welding, automotive, and woodshop, along with keeping an academic program that is second to none.
Thank you. Ms. Porras.
Can I ask one question?
Absolutely.
So the yellow is...
Yeah, there's one more minute left.
Sorry. We should have went over that really first.
You may begin, Ms. Porras.
Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Chamber, for having this. It's nice to see so many people here. I thought there might be about 5 or 10 or something, so thanks for coming. I wasn't sure of the format, so I wasn't sure what we were sharing, but I thought I would start by sharing my background with you. I am from a family of 9 children here in Orland, 8 girls and 1 boy. Many of you may know my family. It is really what has shaped me. All of us kids attended and graduated from Quarne. I went on to graduate from take a job with Quarne County, determining eligibility for Medi-Cal, food stamps, and cash aid. And this job transitioned into a social worker position. But after 10 years, I knew I wouldn't be able to continue that job forever. There was just too much heartache there. I went on to work at AAA Insurance for 15 years and recently became a legal assistant with my sister and brother-in-law. So that's what I'm doing nowadays. Being a member of the school board has been very fulfilling, but sometimes uncomfortable. And thank you, Ben, for sharing so much, because we came on at the same time. So I was, all the things he said mirrored those accomplishments, not for really from us, but the community, the staff, because it was a really collaborative effort. In fact, when we came on the board in 2000, that was one of the first things we did, is have collaboration, like win-win bargaining, they called it. And the teachers and staff all and administration all went to this, and it really has kind of structured how we work together, I think. It was a very positive thing. And especially passing the school bond a few years ago by the community has really afforded us a chance to get the most out of every dollar that we could, and that's thanks to the people of the Orland area. When I did start on the board, it was a totally different atmosphere. I don't know if you will remember, and I do, because it was like there was money coming out of everybody's ears. I mean, it was a great time. Within a few years, though, that's when the crash came with the San Jose area, the internet and everything, which was bringing a lot of money. Maybe it wasn't real, but we thought it was there, and then it was gone. So that has really shaped the last few years of austerity in the district, and I think we've made as good a choice as we can, and I'd like to continue to do that. So I'll just leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the questions that you have written on 3x5 cards are here. We will pick them at random. This is Joyce Yancey. She is serving as our timer. And as you noticed, you have 3 minutes to respond to not only your opening statement, closing statement, but also the questions. The yellow paddle goes up at 2 minutes. The red comes up at 3. And to be equal to everyone, I will stop you in the middle of your answer, if you will. All right. Question 1, and this begins with Mr. Kraemer. Can you explain why a single full-time position became a 1.5-time position, adding another full-time person to the district office, which did not cut back on any personnel yet? The board doesn't hire another teacher for an overcrowded 3rd grade. Do you want me to read that again?
Yeah, we can.
Here it is. Can you explain why a single full-time position became a 1.5-time position, adding another full-time person to the district office, which did not cut back on any personnel yet? The board doesn't hire another teacher for an overcrowded 3rd grade.
Well, I think that's almost, I think that's almost an impossible question to answer without knowing what position they're talking about. There's reasons for this happening sometimes, but without knowing what that position is, I can't answer it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kraemer. Ms. Porras?
I'm not sure either. But one thing you can look at is hiring the 3rd grade teacher. That is something that at one point in time, we may have to look ahead at what will happen next year. And that's one thing that we're always looking at to the future. And you know what the situation is this year, and you may not know what it might even be next semester. And if you hire somebody, then you have to keep them on for the year. So that may have been one of the reasoning for that. And then it may be also that half-time person at the district office is responsible for some other duties. We lost our assistant superintendent last year that had been with us for many years. We have a new one this year, so it may have been to help a little bit in that situation where he's coming on board, learning new things. I'm just conjecturing at this time, but that would be maybe one of the things things to look at.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Carnegie.
I would be answering it also just from what knowledge I think. From attending the last board meeting, I'm assuming the positions they're talking about was the Fairview attendance clerk vacated a 7.5-hour position, and I believe that there was an advertisement for a 7.5-hour program assistant, which will be at the district office, and a 3.5-hour position to replace the Fairview attendance clerk, thus increasing a position 3.5 hours. I don't know the reasons behind it. I can just say that's what I'm assuming the position is. So then there would be a question, since there have been other cuts to the classified, the library clerks. My question would be, if we were increasing hours, we wouldn't increase hours, we probably would be to reinstate hours that were already cut. I think during flush time, sometimes things are spent more readily, and then when you have to retract, you sometimes keep an ongoing list of the positions or the things that have been cut, and then you reinstate according to priority. And this would be what I would assume would be happening, say the library clerk's position then would be one of the first, since it's school site student-focused position, it probably should be one of the first to be reinstated. So I do know that when you hire a teacher, you have to make sure you hire employees with ongoing funds. You can never hire, or you should never hire employees or payroll based on a one-time grant or one-time funds. So that, that answering the teachers, it's much more complicated sometimes putting on a full-time position than just saying we have kids right now, let's put it in. So.
Thank you. The question reads, as a school board member, what would you do if a person came to you with a concern about any issue concerning them at the school? Do you want me to read it again?
Sure.
As a school board member, what would you do if a person came to you with a concern about any issue concerning them at the school?
Thank you. So this probably has happened over the years because it's been kind of a long time. And when we do field a question from someone, whether it's regarding a student or themselves or anything, I feel it's appropriate for me to listen to a point, but then refer them to, if it's their supervisor or they don't feel comfortable with that person's supervisor, because at some point in time, if it's like a labor problem or something like that, as the school board, we are also the last panel to appeal to if there's some problem in the district that someone wants to go to that far, if it hasn't been resolved at some point in time. So I would prefer to stay someone that could hear that issue rather than have a conversation necessarily about it ahead of time and maybe be biased and maybe not be able to act in that capacity down the road. So I feel it's appropriate for them to, I would listen, but if it got where it was something that I felt was over my head, I would, kind of stop them and explain that same scenario and provide them with either the superintendent's information, their principal, just depend on who is the appropriate person.
Okay, thank you. One moment, please. Ms. Carter.
I, as a board member, would always be open to any member of the community that wanted to discuss any issues with me. If they were issues of a labor negotiation or a contract issue that needed to be dealt with on site, I would encourage them to speak to the on-site. I would never promise any outcome to anyone, but I would always offer an ear. I would offer, if they had questions about a policy, a procedure, why something, I would always try to find out the exact answer. I think one does have to be careful in labor matters to not give the impression that you are going to give any special treatment, because that wouldn't be the case. But as a board member, we are responsive to all community members altogether.
Thank you. Ben?
Thank you. Okay, a couple of things. First, I want to know whether it was a parent or it's an employee of the district. If it's a parent, then I will listen to their concerns, but then I will ask them to start with the principal or their teacher, whichever, depends on what the problem is. And if they can't resolve it at that point, then they want to go on up from the principal, then to the superintendent, and then if it isn't resolved at that point satisfactorily, then they want to come to the board. If it's a employee, then it's a whole different ballgame. We have, if some employee has a grievance, we have a union contract that calls for how those are handled. And you have to, that employee has to follow that procedure, and that'll work its way on up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead with this question. I would advise some caution. Connie, we begin with you.
Do any teachers deserve to be fired but have kept their jobs because of the teachers' union?
There are very specific policy in the teacher's contract and classified contract. There are also specifically drawn out reasons where a teacher could be released. Those would be followed by the law, by the district. And I'm sure the procedures have always been followed by the district. There are specific reasons, and someone would have to go to Ed Code. I mean, I know some of them, but I don't think it's appropriate to discuss what serious matters those are. So I just know that a district, and our district does follow those.
Thank you. Mr. Kraemer.
Could you read it again and tell me, is there any punctuation in that? Just kind of like read it there.
There is no punctuation except for the question mark at the conclusion. The question reads, do any teachers deserve to be fired but have kept their jobs because of the teachers' union?
Well, I don't think there's any teacher that has kept their job because of the teachers' union. Again, like Connie said, there's procedures that are followed. If we have teachers that are not performing, those teachers are reviewed by their principal. They are given a letter that goes into their jacket asking them to improve whatever it may be for whatever reason. And the procedures are followed right up the line. It's a long procedure. No teacher would just be fired randomly, and no teacher is left to keep their job because of the teachers' union. I don't, as far as my part on the board, we never look at it that way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kraemer. Ms. Porras.
My response would be, I don't believe so. I mean, we don't know what goes on day to day necessarily all the time. But if there was something that came to the attention that it was deserving for a teacher to be fired, I don't think that, that teacher would be here much longer. It is difficult to let go of a teacher, there's certain, they have tenure and things, but there are ways to do that, and if it was appropriate, I mean, it would need to be done, and it could be very expensive for the district to do worthwhile to do it. But I would just say that all the teachers that I know and the staff we have them because we want them there. And so I would say that would be a no answer on.
Okay.
It's deserving of that.
Thank you. Okay, Ben, you want to be the first respondent on this?
The question reads, what should define community service hours for seniors? Can the qualification be expanded beyond 501c3 core? I believe that's abbreviated for corporations. Let me read it again. What should define community service hours for seniors? Can the qualification be expanded beyond 501c3 corporations?
Okay. I believe that a 501c3 is a nonprofit corporation. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tracy, do you know?
Yes.
A 501c3?
I would
Okay.
advise this. Answer the question.
Well, we'll make that, I'm sorry.
That's my question, and let me elaborate a little bit more on it. Chambers,
Thank you.
I know, no problem answering it. He's probably referring to the community service that the high school kids do as part of their senior project. And there's some rules there that I don't totally agree with. You know, evidently you can't go down and help at the hardware store or whatever. It's got to be a community service type item. And I thought you could do it at a 501c3 like at the Senior Citizens Center. But I might be wrong, but I think it should be expanded beyond that. It ought to cover, I think in some areas, certain church activities, you know, where they're helping as a community service. So yes, I do believe it should be expanded beyond that.
Okay, thank you. Vangie.
I think as long as the administration or the child's, whoever's mentoring them or, you know, their teacher, as long as that's something that they can show what they're going to be doing, and it does equal community service, in my opinion, that should be allowable. Because there are many things to do out here for anyone that, you know, has time. So, and it would also enrich the experience, I think. So maybe it could be, I would agree with Ben saying that should be expanded if that's, didn't realize it was, you know, if it's kept to that parameter at this point. I think it should be expanded. But as long as, like I say, it's been approved and is something that will improve the community. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Carter.
My interpretation would be that 501c is a tax. It also is when you donate and you take it off on your taxes, you have to donate for it to be tax deductible to one of the list of those approved nonprofit organizations. And I think it's kind of connected with that in that in order to count there, it has to be an approved group. So I think, in my opinion, it probably is a safe choice to say we know that those are approved nonprofit organizations. Because I think you could, if you started going down to just any organization that was allowed, you could get more into a work experience situation. And these aren't meant to replace work experience, like say at a local business. These are meant for children to learn about community service, which oftentimes are not just running a business. That's not what this is for. This is for seeing and helping the needy, the less fortunate, to watch how charity works in our community and how our community gathers together and services those less fortunate. So I would say that I think those guidelines would be appropriate for this because they do mimic our government tax laws that way as far as donating to those nonprofits.
Thank you.
Okay, Vangie, we start with you.
Currently, third grade classrooms are up to 33 students in a classroom. This is past the state mandate for third grade classes of the recommended 30. What is or would be your plan to reduce these class sizes?
Okay, well, that's a good question because it's something that's real right now. But actually, I'm going to decline to answer it because that's something that's in our negotiations at this point. I'm not on the negotiating team and I don't want to put something out there that's, because we do, as a school board, try to act as a team. So at this point in time, that's been something that's come to us. It's kind of actually being discussed. So I'm going to decline to answer that question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Carter.
When I was at the school site, this was always a situation that was watched closely when the numbers were over. I do know that you have a certain period of time to allow those students to be over because a lot of times the fluctuations of kids, children coming and going into our district will even out so that the state typically uses an average at the end of that said time period. So you could be at 32 for say 30 days and not be out of compliance if say you went to 28 and it all averaged out. But typically what I have witnessed in the school site is once those numbers are getting close to that, the board, the district, the negotiating team then does what it needs to do to make sure we are in compliance, because we don't want to risk not receiving our attendance money. That's our revenue, and you can lose your revenue if you're out of compliance with your ratio for teachers to students. So I'm sure, I would assume that's being looked at, and then probably a temporary teacher would be hired so as not to have someone in a permanent position. That way you could, if the attendance numbers drop, you're not obligated contractually, you're on a temporary basis, so you could reduce that position if the numbers dropped.
Thank you. Ben?
Okay. I am on the negotiating team, so I am going to try to be careful. But the only thing that I will say is if we have some classes that are with that amount of kids, we have contract language that says what will happen there, and it will be taken care of. I'm confident administration will take care of it.
Okay. Thank you, Ben.
Okay, Connie, we start with you.
Glenn County is moving forward on combining HRA and health services and developing a system of health and other information that will transfer from provider to provider following the individual. Would you support partnering with the county in this combined system network with student information? Do you want me to read the question?
Right now, there is a system that is in place through the school software for students' information to stay with them. It's a new software, and there is a district employee that handles that. I know through the student nutrition department, we automatically get information from the HRA about everyone who is on assistance or qualifies for CalWorks. I don't apply, but anyway, they automatically receive those names, and they automatically are approved for school lunches. So we are already integrated in many ways, and the student information is being developed and with the HRA and sharing of that information. And it's supposed to be now able to be downloaded so that we can automatically even get last year's free and reduced when kids move from school sites. And one of the reasons it also is important is to make sure there's not big gaps in school children so that they're not missing in action, so to speak, because we do have children that move and they're supposed to be going to another school site, but they never show up, and their education is severely harmed. So that I would support, I think we already have that. It's not that I wouldn't support it, but I think that is really already, the schools are right, and California is right on base to already have that, and we are integrated between the systems.
Okay, thank you. Ben?
Okay. I have not heard of the program, but the only thing I'll say is if the program benefits the Orland students and the district, I'll support it. If it doesn't, then I won't. Thank you.
Okay. Vangie?
Would you read the question one more time?
Certainly. Glenn County is moving forward on combining HRA and health services and developing a system of health and other information that will transfer from provider to provider following the individual. Would you support partnering with the county in this combined system network with student information?
Okay, I wasn't aware how it works. Connie sounds like she's pretty up to speed with that, so I didn't know. It sounded like though maybe the information comes from them to us, and I don't know if it's saying our information that would get transmitted back to them. I have a little bit of a concern about it, and I would need to know more about it because of the privacy issue with families and children. We strive to, keep our, it's kind of like our citizens' privacy issues, because there may be times when they don't necessarily want the information to go that way. So I would need to know more about that to say, because earlier in my opening statement, I was a welfare worker at the county, and I saw some problems with those departments combining also. So I just do have a little bit of concern about that. So I'm not saying yes or no at this point. I think there might be some very good benefits of it, but I think there could be some concerns also.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ben?
When there is a completely unruly child, what are teachers expected to do with it?
Again, if you have an unruly child, the child has to be dealt with in, from the teacher to the principal, and then call in the parents. And again, depending on the age of the child and what you mean by unruly, at some point or another, you may have to call in law enforcement. But hopefully it can be taken care of, between the teacher and the principal, and then on up to the superintendent or assistant superintendent and then superintendent. Not much more you can do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, well, this is a good question because there are some kids that are challenges out there. That's one of the reasons I'm not a teacher. I applaud anyone that is because that is really one of the reasons I'm not, because I didn't think I was tough enough to do it. But I think that strategies are, can come up with to help the problem. But and unfortunately, that's I think one of the things that drains resources when you have those kids that are so hard to keep an eye on because they need more one-on-one, I think. But I think that it would take a strategy of the principal, the teacher, and maybe aides and things like that to help maybe keep that child as busy as possible doing something that maybe would help them not be unruly anymore. But that is a challenge, and I do appreciate that challenge for anyone that's doing that. It's the same with the bus drivers, I think, and everyone else that and I think that's one thing is just to recognize that child may have some special needs, because usually there's a reason for the unruliness, but, and I know you can't use a paddle like it was when I was a kid. That didn't work either, so I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Connie.
I think this question comes up now is indicative of the changes in our society. Teachers are seeing not just the minor unruly child, but they're seeing children who are affected by being alcohol or drug syndrome babies. They're affected by their unstable home lives, by abuses that weren't seen in classrooms or school sites a decade or two ago. And so while the teachers, mostly we all witness teachers that are well-trained, well-prepared to handle unruly children, but these times they're more than just challenging. And so I think we rely more on administration to step in and our systems, because there are times now that it's not just an unruly child, that it becomes a safety issue for other children, for the teachers themselves, and for other people around, because the unruliness is no longer not harmful. So I think there are a lot of strategies, and we've all seen in the papers where we see where a 6-year-old was taken away in a police car. And we're all appalled by this, thinking of the little 6-year-old. But this is a problem that our schools and our society are now faced with dealing with, and faced with finding solutions. We have children coming to our school site that no one could have imagined 30 years ago. And the breakdown of the families and with drugs is so prevalent in all societies. It's just a situation that we're going to have to solve, and it's going to be, the responsibility of the schools to deal with it.
Thank you. Okay, then you will start with you. Has the superintendent ever gotten a performance review by the school board? Is this review public information?
We are constantly, I would say, reviewing the superintendent. It's not always official, but in our conversations with him, we let him know, how we think he's doing. It is, we have had a review with the superintendent. Whether or not it's public information is actually up to him, because it's a personnel issue of his, and it's the same as if a teacher wanted to let anybody see their performance review. He's an employee of the district as well.
Okay, thank you. Connie?
From what I have always assumed and seen in past is that the superintendent is an employee of the district, albeit the highest employee, so that therefore there should be a scheduled review and performance evaluation as with any other district employee. I'm sure it's not public unless as this, because working for the school district, I know we were required to have a performance evaluation every year. And of course, those can remain private, because they are tools for improvement, so that even a valued, good employee, it's a time, you always set it up and follow those yearly evaluations, because it's a time to open up a conversation for improvement or appreciation. I mean, there's just a lot of benefit that does come from performance evaluations for all employees, no matter what the position in the district.
Thank you. Ben?
Yes, we do have performance reviews of our superintendent. They would not be, like Vangie said, they would not be for the public unless the superintendent decided he wanted to release them. That would be his option. But we do have reviews.
Thank you. Okay, Connie, we'll start with you.
Board members are offered health insurance in the district's self-funded insurance program, which has cost the district hundreds of thousands of dollars. Do you take, or will you take, the insurance, and why?
I am a retired employee of the district, and therefore, according to contract language, I receive and pay for the required portion from that. I do not need, or my health insurance has nothing to do with me running for the school board, nor will I receive it as a board member. Thank you.
Ben?
Yes, I do have it, and As a board member, we pay approximately $5,000 a year for that health insurance. Would I be willing to talk about dropping it? I have told the negotiating team that yes, I'm willing to talk about it, but that is something that was voted in many years back. It's not, I'm only one member of the board. If we dropped it, I can go to Social Security, but I can't go to Social Security until it is dropped.
Okay, thank you.
I'm lucky enough to have other health insurance, so I would not be taking the board insurance. If it came to a point where I did not have it, I don't know what I would do at that point, but at this point, I do get a compensation for being on the board. The stipend is $240 a month, so that's taxable income for me. That's what I get for serving on the board, and I will continue to do that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ben, we'll start with you.
Do you feel your loyalty is to the children, the parents, the employees, or the administration?
My loyalty as a board member is first to the children and the district. Both of those. One, to make sure that our district is financially sound so that we can give the kids the best education we can. That's where my primary loyalty is. To the employees, it's only to give them good working conditions, be fair to them, follow contract rule, whatever that may be. I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay, thank you. Vangie?
Well, as you're asking the question, Tracey, the answer that came to my mind was just yes. I mean, because you have loyalty, I think, to each section that you mentioned, but primarily our focus has to be on the service we provide to the students and ultimately the families of Orland. But knowing about the candidates, I made me think about things over the years, and I also have a loyalty to staff, and because there's several that are friends, relatives, and so it's important to make sure that they're well taken care of and be treated fairly and respectfully, and also with the administration, because until you've been sued with somebody, you feel closeness when that happens. So there is loyalty in that respect too, but ultimately, the main loyalty is to what benefits the community of Orland.
My loyalty absolutely begins with the students, but every one of those groups, the parents, the community members, the teachers, are all stakeholders in our operation. And the goal of our operation, the goal of our district, is to give the absolute best education we can to our students. They are everyone's first priority, but they are respected stakeholders in our district, and all should be treated with respect, and their opinions and the information they bring to us are always appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Vangie. What can be done to help with the morale of the teachers in the Orland School District?
Well, I know if we could give them more money, I would probably help. We don't have that luxury at this point. It's something that I've been thinking about, but I don't know if it's something that the teachers would be willing to kind of go in on with us, and maybe the Employees Association also, but possibly to do, and it sounds kind of dumb, but like a real good thing, but like a survey of the district to see what people's concerns are out there, and maybe there are some improvements that can be made that are not really costly, but would maybe change, your environment at work. And I don't know how much a study like that would cost, because we are a pretty large district. but to have maybe a outside neutral person come in, kind of from the bottom top, and get that feeling from what's going on out there. Because, you know, like I said, we have friends and family in the you know, that are maybe in those capacities, but they may not be totally honest with us. So they could be honest with maybe a neutral person and get some, like I said, good ideas and things. So I don't know if that's something, maybe throw that out there, maybe that might be something that could happen as with the organization that they'd be willing to help out with the cost of something like that. So maybe we could talk more about that. Leave it at that.
Okay,
Contribute to question.
certainly. What can be done to help with the morale of the teachers in the Orland School District?
I would begin by saying there are studies when I was in college that show that if you give an employee a raise, that it keeps them happy or they're satisfied for approximately 3 weeks. Money is not the answer for satisfaction or job satisfaction. Of course, we all need a certain amount of money to survive, but our happiness does not directly come from that. And in our workplace, we need to be respected, we need to be included, and we need to think that our voice and our opinion matters. A workplace never is a positive workplace if you begin or you use methods of intimidation or fear. To have a satisfactory workplace, and an individual must feel valued, must feel respected, so that if there is a morale problem in our district, we would have to start with that level. Every supervisor should be leading with respect, with kindness, and with a listening ear. And it should go from top to bottom. And you will never get respect or caring unless you give respect and caring. So that if there is a morale problem, I think that's what we should start examining.
Okay. Ben?
I think it's pretty tough to try to increase or better morale in the district when every time we turn around, we're telling them that we have less money to work with, whether it's in the classroom, wages, whatever it may be. It's pretty tough, and it's pretty tough for those people to keep saying, oh, this is great, this is great. And we don't know what's coming down the pike on November the 6th. We don't know what that election is going to do. It might get tougher. But as all we can do is try to, as a board, try to be a cheerleader for the district and say, we're doing the best we can. We have always had, our books and everything are open. Anybody that wants to know where the money goes and what, that's all they have to do is go down and get an audit and take a look. We don't hide anything. So that's all we can do is just keep trying to be cheerleaders for it and say, let's do the best we can. Now again, there's not too many people are going to agree what the best is when you don't have money and you're asking them to take less, but we don't have much choice.
Connie, let me start with you.
What are the predicted financial revenues from the state next year? How will this impact Orland?
Well, the predicted state revenues, it all depends on if Proposition 30 passes or not. If Proposition 30 does not pass, there will be more cuts again. The ADA, I can't tell you exactly price per student, but depending on where it's been cut, I think it's in the range of $5,000 some odd dollars per student. But as I say, that's the problem with schools making budgets now and making plans. The state makes the budgets, but then there's also mid-year cuts. So to say what the revenues will be next year, they might tell us what it is in August, they might tell us in September, but in February, there now is a precedent that they can come and say, well, nuts. It didn't come in like we thought, so the money we promised you that you've been spending all year, you're not going to get. budgets and fiscal planning that the government is asking schools to make. So to give $1, I couldn't give you exact dollar, but we'll know some of those figures per student ADA after Proposition 30. And knock on wood, that'll be good news.
Thank you. Ken?
Well, right now, I'm not going to try to quote exactly what the state's proposed ADA is. I think it's somewhere around $450 to $460 per student, but please don't quote me on that. Call me and I'll look it up and tell you exactly what it is. But I do know that our budget this year is a little over $16 million, and that's down approximately $2 million, $2.5 million, I think, from about 3 or 4 years ago. And if the propositions don't pass, we're looking probably at another $900,000 cut. So that's going to hurt. Also, the other thing that people have to realize now, we were holding our own these last 2 years as far as average daily attendance for students, but we are down from probably about the year 2000, 2001, a good 250 students yet. So that makes a big difference.
Thank you. Vangie?
Will you read the question one more time? I didn't know if I missed the second part.
Sure. The question reads, what are the predicted financial revenues from the state next year? How will this impact Orland?
Then, yeah, I would just echo what these folks have said over here. We don't know until the elections what we have to work with and how that's going to actually come down, if it does pass or if it doesn't pass. If it does pass, we should be able to hold our own, and around $5,000 per student is what we usually get for our students. How it will affect us is a big question mark, and I encourage everyone to vote yes on Proposition 30 to try to at least keep the schools in balance of what they have to work with at this point, and not do like Connie said, something in midterm and just cut it off or cut it back, and we don't have what we figured to have at the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, and it will also be an effect for next year, and it would kind of be a domino effect, I believe. So, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
At this point, we've asked 12 questions, and what I'm attempting to do is balance the questions so each candidate has an opportunity to be the first respondent an equal number of times. In other words, to balance it out a little bit. We've been at this for an hour and 5 minutes, so there are a few questions left, and I know they're important to somebody because you took the time to ask it and write it down. So what I'm going to invite that we all do collaboratively and very mindful of the clock is we will take a 2-minute 7th inning stretch to stand up, get the legs back from Numbville, and then return to this in about 2 minutes. Okay, thank you. What we're going to do, we're going to pull 6 questions at this time. I'll have all 6 here. We'll move through those 6. That will give an opportunity for 2 more rounds of questions, if you will. So each candidate will have an opportunity to answer first 2 more times, and then we'll invite their concluding remarks. Okay, thank you again for your cooperation, audience. Thank you. All right. We'll begin again with Ben. The question reads,
Since no child is supposed to be left behind, how has that impacted our school system? Should it be repealed?
First, yes, it should be repealed. In my opinion, there's no way that you can't say that every child is going to graduate from high school, or wherever you want to put it. You know, some kids just, let's say, from a high school in an academic structure. To me, that's why we need to keep our vocational the classes we have, you know, ag classes, woodworking, welding, etc. Because again, I do not feel that it's possible to graduate every child. I'd like to say that was possible, but I don't think it is. I think it's a good goal to look for, but you're asking me if I really believe it's possible. I don't think so.
Thank you, Vangie.
I would agree with Ben that No Child Left Behind should be repealed. Since it came to be law in our country, the expectation that kids are going to increase year to year to year, it just doesn't seem to me to make sense. It doesn't seem realistic. And the way it's structured, there's not a lot of flexibility with it. So you aren't necessarily dealing with what is best for that child by putting No Child Left Behind on everybody. So we've seen it, we call it like, unfortunately, I think it has happened a lot where we do teach to the test because that's what it was about, scoring on the test. That's the indication, are you meeting the goals of No Child Left Behind? So I do agree that it should be repealed. I don't think has been a beneficial thing for our country.
Thank you, Connie.
If you asked me if I could say, yes, let's leave a child behind, I would have to say no. I could not say that. Would I like to see No Child Left Behind changed or amended? Yes. We need to make sure that all students reach a minimum level of functioning at high school to graduate. Now, does that mean every student is going to go on to college? Of course not. But having a vocational program, having other options, amending it to include a variety of successes for children would be what I want to see. To be successful doesn't mean taking one path out the high school door into a college door. There are many other ways. If we repeal, I would rather see it adapted than abandoned, because we need to find a successful place for children of varying abilities and varying backgrounds, varying situations. But there should be a way to lead our children to a successful education, not only college-bound, and especially not that successful doesn't mean you pass a test. There's so much more to life than passing a test. People could pass a test but don't have the common sense or the analytical skills to use what we've taught them. Creative thinking, there's so many things that aren't shown in our testing. So while I could never say, if you ask me if you want to leave a child left behind, I'd have to answer no. But do we need to adapt it for the success and change the way they've set it up that only tests mean you're doing well educationally? I was one of the older students in all of my classes at Chico State, and I can tell you that it doesn't matter that you can pass a test and go on to college. A lot of the kids still, they had no ability to create and write or to think. So there's just a lot more I'd like to see adjusted in it.
Okay, thank you, Connie. Vangie, we start with you. How do you see yourself cooperating with the county board?
cooperation with the county board, I think as long as, we're following what the laws are and working together to in a spirit of kind of good comradeship, I think that's something that does benefit both sides of things. Personally, I'm not sure how to answer that because I don't have necessarily a personal activity with the county board, so I'm not sure. I think to let the county board know when things are appreciated, like for instance the newsletter that is put out, I think that's a benefit to the county because it lets everybody know different things that are going on. So that's a very, praise that type of thing. But I'm kind of at a loss for that question. But I think that as long as we keep an open communication, I'll say that. I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Connie. Certainly. How do you see yourself cooperating with the county board?
I would see myself totally cooperating with the county board because I see every student of Orland as a student of Glenn County. I think we're all in this together. There are, especially when you have two groups with ultimately the same goals of making our students successful, I think you always want to keep an open mind and use collaboration because you get many good ideas from many different sources. And we all are, both the board, the county, and the Orland School District, working toward the same goals, the success of our children.
Thank you. Ben?
I think it's very important that we work with the county board, county superintendent, but I do believe that it's a two-way street, and they have to try to work with us also. Up until these last couple of years, that relationship wasn't too good. But I feel now that we have a very good relationship going, and I'd like to see it get better, but we're on the right road, I think.
Thank you. Connie, we'll start with you. The question reads, what are your qualifications for budget analysis?
Well, as I stated, I have been on the district bookkeeper for 10 years. I assisted the business manager with many financial reports. I assisted teachers with financial and budget reports. In private business, I was the fiscal manager for 17 years for a large dollar corporation, and I did all the budgeting there. I can say that government and budget reports are, for whatever reason, they decided to complicate them as much as they can. And it took quite an effort to learn them. I'm proud I can learn them. I'm interested in them. And counting the beans and counting the numbers and looking at numbers is something I love to do. And I had many classes at Chico State when I earned my degree in business administration, so I feel very comfortable with financial and budget reports.
Thank you, Ben.
Well, I've been on the school board for almost 12 years and been analyzing them for all those years. But before that, I've been self-employed, my own business for a little over 40 years now, and I haven't always done the best sometimes way back when I'm analyzing those budgets, or trying to decide what you budget, but I'm still in business with my son, and I think we've been doing a pretty good job of it. I'm still involved, and I feel I'm well qualified for it.
Thank you. Ben?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm as confident as these two, but before I did come on board, I just had the regular experience of an average citizen of balancing your checkbook and that kind of thing, trying to plan ahead for what you're going to need down the road. But that does come into play with the school board also, and being, yes, on the board for 12 years, you have seen those budgets, and it's really awe-inspiring to see what work our business administration has to do, because they're always figuring what's going to happen, and they have to figure out what but I don't really have, I wouldn't call it qualifications for that in any, other than, like I said, just being a person that has to account for money just like everybody else. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ben, we start with you.
Do you see a lot of waste in the school lunch program? I have seen a great deal of food thrown away. What can be done?
Well, first, I don't see any waste in our food program. You see a lot of food thrown away because the cooks have to cook for a certain amount of kids. They're not even sure how many of them are going to come through and eat that particular meal, but they have to cook that all of them are going to show up, and so it's a problem. The other thing that happens, I think a lot of the, and I'm not sure what they're referring to there, but kids will take a bunch of food on their plate and then they don't eat it and throw it away. You look at that and say, well, that's a lot of waste, but there's nothing you can do about that neither. I think our food program is second to none in the North Valley. I've eaten down there at times, and if those, the meal that those kids get for, what is it, $1.75 now or whatever it is, $2, they're doing good. I don't know why they walk uptown. I haven't figured that one out yet. But, well, I shouldn't say I haven't figured it out. We were young once also. It's too bad they don't take advantage of what we're serving them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Vangie.
I guess it would come down to, just the number of students that come through for lunches, and it is difficult to pinpoint what you're going to need, and get the numbers right. And you want to make sure that you have enough. So I don't really see a way to avoid that from happening. There probably are some times when they run short if it's something that's very popular with the kids. But I think that the people that we have in place, the cooks and everything, that they do take note of that and try to make it as minimal of waste as possible. So I do appreciate their efforts on that.
Thank you, Connie.
I can tell you that our cooks, from personal experience, are amazing at how close they guess. And we are required to note exactly, there are sheets required, and you note exactly how many meals are left over. And you must never have, if you have 0 left over, you'll be questioned, because what they will say is there were children that were not fed. They watch if you have too much. Part of the problem is people don't understand, because you're not in it, is we are required, according to regulation, to each child must take components, whether they want them or not. You can't force them, it's offer versus serve, but you must encourage them to take all of the components. If they do not go to the components, 3 of the 5 offered components, and now this year it changed to where they had to take more, then you cannot put in for a reimbursable meal. So you're at a catch-22 as a school. You need to not have waste, but you have to have those children exposed and encourage them to take all the food. So that, and what we did is we adopted, when I went to the trainings for the food service, is feed kids, not garbage cans. So what we did is, through the cooks, we all worked together and did surveys at their schools to say, we made a list of the meals that were served prior, and I went down with the cooks and said, which are the ones that the kids hate? Because trust me, the aides keep you well informed when the food goes to the garbage can. Right away, one of the first things I made in there was I was told the kids love broccoli and egg rolls. I served that one time to Mill Street. Everybody said it all went in the garbage. So there were concerted efforts to serve the kids good meals, but ones they knew. And I implemented a rotating menu to where it was their favorites. But then we just rotated it. I believe I had 24 meals, except for a couple we did specials. And those were all the meals, not every child liked, but there were no more meals. We eliminated meals that the cook said they don't want to feed it, the kids don't want to eat it. It was out of there. So that's the way, it's a hard balance with the rules that you have to serve them, but you can if you make sure you go back to student-oriented likes and dislikes and adapt your menus that way.
Very good.
Vangie.
Second to last question. How do you keep kids from leaving the Orland School District and going to Hamilton City or Plaza or Lake?
Well, I think the answer to that is to continue to offer as much variety and diversity as we can. It gives more opportunity for the kids on whatever track they may be on. It might be ROP, or it could be to be a student, or it could be to be an artist. Just, we want to offer that variety to whatever is the thing that will interest that child and enrich their life. I think that we've been fortunate to maintain our programs where we've seen lots of cuts at other schools, districts, and we have been fortunate not to have to do that at this point. And I think that's one of the commitments that we have, is to, whatever it takes, maintain those kind of things. I think that I know we're the only school district that still offers driver's training for our students. And that's because we feel that's something for the safety of our community. It's important for us to do it. We can do it at a lesser expense than individual families would be hiring somebody in Chico to teach them to drive. But I think that continue to offer good program and curriculum is the best that we can do to keep kids here or attract them back, maybe. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
I think it's important to have an environment where all of the stakeholders are proud of what we have. You've got parents, you've got students, you've got teachers, you've got community members. And for the most part, if every one of those people who are active in our district are proud of what we offer, I think the students will come. The students also, Orland has done a wonderful job of keeping all of their programs, their sports, their ag especially, for the high school kids, so that brings and keeps our students. But if we're proud of our product and every one of the stakeholders, I think it shows. One thing too, and I'm not saying we want to lose students, but I think one thing we always have to respect people's and parents' need to put their children where they think they are best served. I think Orland could serve every student, but we do have to always remember that every child is unique, every child has special needs, different needs, and parents want to make sure their children are taken care of. But I think if our environment is positive and every one of us that comes to work every day at every level is proud of what we're doing, I think that will be the best we can do to encourage people to come.
Thank you. Ben?
I think the best way to do that is to continue to offer the best programs we can in our school district, plus the best variety, both best variety and the best in the academic end. And we need to excel in all those programs, and if we do that, we'll get our kids back. It takes time, but we will get them back. Everybody in the district has to be a cheerleader for the district. If we're not cheerleaders, the parents look at it and say, well, you don't even feel good about your school. So we just have to do our best and keep doing that. We tried every other way and it hasn't worked. But I think that this year is a pretty good example of what we have been doing. If we look at both Lake and Plaza, we got almost all of those kids this year into our high school. So we're on the right track, I think.
Okay, thank you.
This is the last question. And it starts with you, Connie.
Can you name one way to improve our schools that does not require more money from taxpayers?
There are many ways to improve things without money. I think sometimes we hear a problem and our first solution is to throw money at it. I think when a problem surfaces, you look at and you gather information because perhaps you can improve by efficiency. Perhaps you can improve by an idea that one of the people doing the work hasn't been asked yet. So that it's a whole new way to approach the work. Money isn't always the answer to everything. I know it affects most everything, but when a problem surfaces, you do not have to go to let's throw money at it and that will solve it. It's like in the cafeteria when, and they are one, I will agree, I mean, everyone in our school works very hard, every position, and they do too. But it was like they're overworked and they felt the only thing that would solve it was another person working. But instead of saying, because we couldn't get another person, but we looked at the processes, we looked at efficiency, we looked at a way of changing how you do the job so that we were able to make a lot of the people's jobs easier without adding more people. I just think you've got to you've got to take the time to seek information and seek it from perhaps avenues that you've never thought of as having the information. Answers come from so many different places. They come from everywhere. And this is a story. She hasn't waved her yellow yet. When I was in school, there was a class I took, and it was for the space program. They were trying to figure out, all of the engineers, all the scientists, the spaceship was 800 pounds too heavy. They all gathered in meetings and talked to each other, all the higher-ups from everywhere. Well, one day they were visiting the building, and the little guy down at the bottom in his little jumpsuit working outfit and his steel-toed shoes walks over to him and he says, you know, why don't we just not paint it? The paint weighs 800 pounds. There was the answer. Now, sometimes if you close yourself off and only listen to certain places, you're not going to get that answer.
Well, almost anything you do, it seems like it's going to cost some money in some manner. But the one thing that doesn't is if attitude again. If everybody goes around with a smile and doesn't talk down about our school district, tries to promote it in a nice way, we'll get more mileage out of that than all the dollars you spend otherwise.
Thank you. Vangie.
One of the things that had been started at our school board meetings was a student of the month, and I think the superintendent started that. So it happens that each school takes a turn each month, and it rotates, and they get to have a student of the month. So it could be a second grader, it could be a high schooler, it could be eighth grader. But that's been a really good thing for us to see. The actual kids, they come and they do get recognized, you know, by us, and they're bringing their family usually. And the teachers get together and say really nice things about them and why they want to, you know, recommend this child to be student of the month. But I think that's I think recognition is sort of with attitude that you can appreciate with the employees, and I think that goes a long way to better the schools, and it doesn't cost anything. And I think people make the effort to do that, but sometimes you do forget because you're in what you're doing every day. And that's just something to maybe, you know, acknowledge a good job that someone did and not just take it for granted. We do expect them to do a good job, but it's nice to be recognized for doing it also. And that wouldn't cost anything. I'm not sure how you would, but the student of the month thing is kind of maybe something to mirror for maybe employee of the month or something like that. But just to say that you did a good job today in your class, you know, that's, I think, something that they would appreciate and would help.
Thank you.
And now, you get to wrap all this up. Vangie, you just got done and you get to go again.
Okay. Well, 3 minutes, I didn't think it was so long, but it's kind of a long time to talk. But no, I do appreciate you all coming and spending the evening with us here, and Chamber for having this. You know, I think we all take this very seriously, and I know that you do too. And whatever choice you do make, Just make sure and vote. I think that as a community, that we're headed in the right direction. So I think any of us that get on there, I would think will do a great job. And when I was thinking about probably having a closing statement, I didn't know what the format would be. But the word I wanted to share again was opportunity. I think that's our main responsibility, is to give the opportunity to students that come through our school to be able to get where they want to go as long as they put the work into it. To have that structure for them and make sure that we don't fail them in that aspect. So I will just leave it at that. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to start off with the role of the school board. Our role is to govern. We set direction for the schools. We establish and maintain an effective and efficient school district structure. We provide support to the superintendent and staff. We make decisions and provide resources to support these goals. Our job does not include micromanaging the district. We set direction for our superintendent and leave the management to him. If he does not perform as directed, it is our duty to replace him. We must also be responsible to the values, beliefs, and priorities of our community. In closing, I'd like to explain why I'd like to be reelected. I'd like to continue helping guide our district in these difficult financial times to do our best to keep us solid. I want to continue to help guide us through our construction projects and stay conservative enough in our bond measure spending to keep our county tax rate under the $60 per 100,000 of assessed value as we promised. I want to continue to strive for excellence in our children's education, better test scores, etc. I want to make sure we continue to offer our sports programs, music, ag, welding, and woodworking classes. 60% of our young adults do not go on to college. They need these valuable skills. Most importantly, I want to make sure we do what is best for our children while keeping our district financially sound. On November the 6th, I appreciate your vote, and I will do my best to serve you. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie.
I am seeking the position on the Orland School Board to be a voice for our community and our children. I am not seeking to be a rubber stamp. I will be an active participant and an informed board member, seeking out information and making student-focused decisions for the education of our children and our students of tomorrow. My responsibility, if elected, will be to ask questions and to seek solution through informed answers and due diligence. Answers and solutions come from many voices, transparency, and full disclosure. I want Orland schools to find a way to increase the number of school attendance days back to the full 180-day school year. Children learn while they are in school, and not all districts have been forced to reduce the number of attendance days. This puts our students at an educational disadvantage. The Millstead Cafeteria, which is now being replaced, was built in the 1940s and served our children through June 2012. What foresight those school boards and administrations exhibited to plan and construct a building to serve our community well for so many years. What a fine example for us to follow. I want reinstating school site positions such as the library clerk to be a priority before creating any new non-school site positions or committing to non-student spending. Teacher supply budgets have been continually cut in the past years. I want to see teachers' classroom supply budgets increased before any allocations to non-student spending. Providing the opportunity for a quality education for our children is each and one of our responsibilities, as well as our communities, and a source of its greatest pride. Orland had always been and will continue to be an outstanding place to receive an education. It takes a village to educate a child, and I am proud to be in the Orland Village. for this opportunity, and with your vote and support, it would be my honor and privilege to serve you on your Orland School Board.
Thank you. Before we dismiss, I need to tell you we have all of the 18 questions that were asked are right here. If you wish to read them for yourself, they're sitting on the lectern.
To the audience, I believe I'd speak for all the candidates and the Chamber of Commerce in saying thank you for being such a wonderful audience. And now, as we conclude and we go home, and Bob Holzapfel can feel relief.